When he hit the ground, wham! I got the wham. Just before the wham, man.
Welcome to episode 68 of the Columbo podcast, where we are all about the wham mam.
Where nobody can hear you scream.
How are we, Ian?
Not too bad.
You should be terrible after having to watch that episode.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm glad I didn't just watch the episode because I would have been a bit disappointed.
Throwing yourself off a building.
Maybe not quite. Throwing the DVD off a building, perhaps.
Yeah. Dreadful episode.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it, but for me, the most damning thing that I can think of was at the end of the episode. I couldn't remember any highlights. There wasn't anything I thought, at least that bit was good.
Yeah, it was horrible all round.
We didn't even get to enjoy our final Scottish killer.
No, wasn't impressed at all.
It's hard to say whether it's the acting or the direction, but the character had a distinct lack of focus.
In fairness to Connolly, I think, he wasn't helped by the script, or the direction, or the acting of those around him, including Peter Falk, I think.
Yeah, it was a little bit odd at times.
Mm-hmm. Anything you want to say before we begin this week's episode, or will we just try and get it over and done with as quickly as possible?
We should probably reflect on the fact it's the penultimate episode of Columbo.
Yep, but not the penultimate episode of the Columbo podcast.
No. What's the word for third from last?
I don't know. Third from last.
For now.
Penultimate. Double pen.
Penultimate, maybe.
Yeah.
That's probably right. I'm going to go with that. We shouldn't leave people sad. Let's bring them back in with some Columbo chat.
Yeah, but the Columbo chat is only going to highlight the dearth of entertainment and the poor quality of this episode. It's not the first time that we have seen a conductor, a maestro in Columbo, is it? It's not,
but the good news is that studies show people form their opinion of a podcast in the first 15 minutes. So we can just keep this introduction going a little bit longer, we should be fine.
You really do not want to be nodding to Etude in Black.
I like Etude in Black.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
It's a good episode.
It's a classic episode. This episode
borrows heavily,
yes,
but not in a good way.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's nodding. It's comparing itself to something that's far superior.
It's a pale imitation.
It's transparent, is what it is, not just pale.
Is this one of those ones where Patrick McGowan changed all the script while he was managing it?
You'll find out, but the answer is yes. He should leave it alone. Stop messing around.
Well, there's no way to know if the original script was any good, but the one that we ended up with was not.
We can see that for certain. Garbage, and it'll be interesting when we talk about the other person who was involved and the main credit in terms of the writing of this.
Okay.
Let's just crack on because I've got a disgusting taste in my mouth and I want to get rid of it.
I feel like you've said that before.
I was young. Needed the cash.
Let's have the summary. In Murder with Too Many Notes, we are introduced to Finlay Crawford, a legendary composer of film soundtracks who has, of late, lent heavily on the assistance of his protégé, Gabriel McEnery. When Crawford takes full credit for yet another work that McEnery has made a sizable contribution to, the younger man threatens to reveal all to director Sidney Ritter. Unable to concede one iota of credit either now or in the future, Crawford hatches a plot to dispose of McEnery. But it isn't long before Columbo is on the case. The silver-haired lieutenant may not be as young as he once was, but his legendary instincts remain intact and he is soon hot on the maestro's trail. Crawford, however, has a cast-iron alibi, witnessed by hundreds. Ultimately, all that remains is to discover whether Columbo will come up short for once, or if he can break that alibi and make the maestro face the music.
Thank you for that, Ian. Take 5. We start with a false opening. We see a woman being chased down a street before it is revealed that it is in fact a movie, in the middle of being scored with a flailing conductor. First things first, I am no expert on the art of orchestral conduction, but he did not look like he was in any way competent. In fact, it looked like he was conducting to a different score than what we were hearing.
I'm not sure that all the things he was doing were conducting. I think he was just waving his arms.
It looked like a complete it looked like one of us doing an impersonation of a conductor.
Yes, without any of the knowledge that you need to understand how to keep the beat or any of the other stuff.
And the thing is, we'll get to it. I mean, Connolly is not a musical dunce.
No.
But he looked here as if he had no idea, and he was just throwing his arms around willy-nilly.
That could have been direction, though. He could have been doing it properly and then told, no, we need more, bigger.
Well, I suppose it could have been.
We just don't know.
But it just stands out as being awful.
It's worth noting, in keeping with the theme of the episode, that the movie they're scoring is also awful.
Yeah. The camera, it focuses on a microphone, and we head up to the
roof.
We do. And up on the roof, we see a stereo which appears to be transmitting this music from downstairs. And there's a younger man certainly than the maestro, and he's conducting this imaginary orchestra before a security guard appears and chastises him for being up there.
Yeah, his conducting is not significantly better from what I could see.
Yeah.
And the security guy annoyed me straight away. I immediately hoped he was the victim when he came out with, yo!
The last time I heard a yo like that was in...
Sex and the Married Detective.
Yeah. This younger man is Gabriel McHenry. Gabe. And he casually informs him that this is where he goes. He always does this. This is where he gets inspiration when the maestro downstairs is performing and working.
Yeah, we're getting kind of a back and forth between the two, the conductor on the roof, the conductor in the room, and we see the end of the movie with a over-the-top score playing right through to the conclusion. And having spoken with the security guard, Freddie, Gabe returns to the theatre.
Yes, he goes downstairs and he kisses his, who we come to learn is his girlfriend. She's a pianist in the orchestra.
She is.
And tells her that his practice went well and that he has ideas for the boss, for Finlay Crawford.
Yeah, and he seems a little bit miffed about the whole process, but he's got some notes.
And she's quite encouraging. She tells him to go and speak to Crawford.
Yeah,
Finlay.
He seems to be in a good mood, although there's no evidence of that when McHenry goes to speak to him.
No, he approaches him, and they go through to the mixing room.
Yeah.
Where the staff there are told to take a break. And Gabe tells him that he has these suggestions. And we cut to later in the screening room, where these suggestions apparently have been implemented. And they watch in the company of their delighted client.
Yeah, the director, Sidney Ritter.
Yeah, so let's be clear here. They are scoring a movie for a director of a big budget Hollywood movie.
That's right.
So they've got to get this right.
Yes, he's used Crawford in his movies for many years, so he knows what he's getting.
Gabriel is disheartened when Finlay happily and blatantly takes credit for the changes that have been made, before reminding the client of his Crawford Conducts Crawford concert that evening.
That's right.
So what's Crawford Conducts Crawford?
Well, it's the music from all the movies that he's scored, conducted by him live in person.
A bit like a John Williams, I think.
Yeah. But obviously not as good.
No. Terrible. He then invites Gabriel to the bungalow to celebrate this the success of this particular project.
Yeah.
But Gabriel would rather talk.
See, it's a strange setup. I mean, you've got Crawford, who we're told at the start seems in a good mood, but is clearly grumpy. And then he implements the changes anyway, despite having appeared grumpy, and then seems happy to take credit and completely oblivious to McHenry's unhappiness.
Yeah, I think, in fairness, I think Crawford is generally one of these guys who has a grumpy exterior. Perhaps they're playing on the stereotype of the dour Scot. So I don't think, I think that's just how he acts. I think he was fairly, open to the suggestions, and in fact we come to learn that he relies upon these suggestions, so I don't think it's something that should be surprising him.
No, but whether he accepts that he can't do it, or whether he just thinks he's going to enhance his work with these additions.
So did that relationship remind you of another one?
Another relationship between maestro and mentor?
Not quite, but...
No, they're both the same person. Maestro and protege.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Give me a sort of genre.
The written word.
The written word.
Let's go back.
Are we thinking first episode of the show?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's exactly the same.
Well, I don't mean there's not a maestro and a protege. I'm talking about one partner who's doing the work and the other person is about to be exposed for not contributing. And
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
The other thing I was reminded of here is that the bungalow looked to me a lot like the sort of breakout pad that they had in Murder, Smoke and Shadows.
I think it's the same idea. It's on a studio set. That's where the talent can go to relax and gather their thoughts rather than going home.
Quite a lot of the lot actually reminded me of that, and I wondered if it was some of the same stages that they used.
I have no doubt it'll be on Universal's property, so it will be the same setup.
Yeah.
We're in the bungalow. Gabriel gets a few things off his chest and he effectively threatens Finlay.
Musically, I don't exist here.
Gabriel.
I've seen all your old ones on video. Many times. That's why I'm here. You were great then. The best. But by the time I came onto the scene, you were beginning to lose it.
Lose what, Gabriel?
The talent, the gift, the spark of creation. It's been about 5 years since I came on as your apprentice, and I'm grateful for the early training. But you needed me. And it wasn't long before I was doing most of your scores. The one we're working on now, 75% mine. And this one? The one you won the grand prize for? This one? This one's all mine. To prove it, I have copies of the original and the one I wrote to win you the grand prize. And yet, not one word of acknowledgement? I don't exist here. I'm gonna go to Sidney Ritter. I'm gonna tell him the whole story, and he'll find me work. Yeah, I'm moving on.
Not yet. Not yet, Gabriel.
The grand prize.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on that terminology?
Well, the statue that he was holding looked a lot like an Oscar.
An Academy Award?
They've mentioned those awards specifically, I'm sure, in the past.
Perhaps politics has played something, has something to do with this?
Well, I just wonder whether the channel this episode is airing on perhaps does not have coverage of the Oscars.
I think it's a good a guess as anything.
Yeah. Anyway, it's weird.
So in a panic, Finlay attempts to appease Gabriel by discussing their past together, how they met and their relationship, and then offering him the chance to conduct his score from The Killer immediately after intermission that evening.
The following evening at the concert.
Is it the following evening?
Yeah, this is straight after the... Oh, is it the same? I'm not even... Yes, because this is straight after he's told Ritter tomorrow is the concert.
Yeah, okay.
So it's the following evening.
He also claims that he's going to call up Sid Ritter and admit the truth to him. And naively, Gabriel is delighted and he apologises for his tone and insolence.
Yeah, and there's a pleasant exchange, but as Gabriel leaves, it's quite apparent that Crawford's smile slips rapidly.
Yeah, he has the murderer's grin.
That's the one.
Conniving.
Yeah.
Gabriel McHenry was played by Chad Willett. He was born in 1971. Not a massive career. He has been in Alive, Joan of Arc, The Chronicle, Jack and Jill, Madison and The X-Files, but nothing major, no breakout role, I don't think. So, from leaving a comb on the rooftop, trapdoor. Is that a trapdoor?
I'm not thinking you would call... I don't know, I think a trapdoor goes down, doesn't it? It's more of a hatch.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've referred to it as trapdoor throughout all my notes, so I might drop that in. We know what we're talking about.
It's a legation, that's what it is.
So from leaving this comb on the hatch on the roof, Finlay makes his way to the basement where he rides a disused elevator back through this hatch and he times the complete journey at 1 minute and 58 seconds.
While apparently managing to defy the laws of physics.
In what way?
Well, a comb, which has no real weight to speak of, lying flat on that sloping thing, somehow leaps to the edge of the building and falls.
Yeah, it certainly wouldn't be flipped, and even when you consider the body, I'm assuming that it wasn't flush. You know, the hatch wasn't flush.
Yeah, there's
with
a gap.
Yeah, there'd have been a small wall. You know, roofs aren't...
But even if there wasn't a small wall, there must be about a foot's worth of roof between the edge of the hatch and the drop.
Yeah.
So you can understand a body maybe turns and it's got momentum enough to topple over.
Mm-hmm.
But a comb wouldn't have that acceleration it needed.
Sure. And even then, there is no way that on the spur of the moment, Finlay could have been sure that body would have fell like that. There was no practice involved. I'd rather have seen him go up there with a rolled up rug or something like that.
Yeah, just to see how it would work.
Yeah.
Because unless that hatch opened at a phenomenal rate, I would imagine the cone would just slide down it and fall into the lift.
Yeah. In fact, I would suggest that the weight of a body would actually have prevented the hatch from opening at all.
Quite possibly. Also, it's never really explained how he's the only person in the world that knows the lift works. Unless he's sussed out murdering Gabe in the past and knowing that he stands up there.
I think it's just poor writing.
He seems pleased anyway to find the comb on the street.
So we see Monolith Studios from the outside, and Gabriel arrives early for the concert. It's the next day then, and informs a security guard that he is going to be rehearsing. He has a surprise that night that he will see if he turns up.
And the man says he is going to turn up.
Everyone knows that the security guards at the studios are perfectly entitled to turn up to these televised events. That's a perk of the job.
Well, I think the implication is he's not working that evening.
Yeah, but even then, I'm sure the security guards don't hang around and go there on their
Might
own
have better
time.
things to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, he arrives, Gabriel, at the bungalow, and he's got a gift in with his suit.
What's that?
Rebecca has sent him this gift, and she's obviously excited for his opportunity. She's gifted him a baton.
And it's inscribed, isn't it? It's been personalised.
Yeah, she's put some musical notes on the handle.
Yep, he's delighted. And he has brought with him a suit, and he also finds a congratulations card along with his baton.
Yeah, and he immediately wants to pen a response.
Yeah, so it's a bit...
Saccharine.
Yeah. He plays a few notes on an electric keyboard, and he prints off the music, which he scribbles a little love note on.
Yeah, he's got a piece of software that transcribes what he's playing into a score.
And he places this note, this print off, into his tuxedo coat. And then he checks a pair of shoes. So he picks them up and inspects them. We don't know why he's interested in these at the moment.
We don't.
Finlay enters, and he finds out that Gabriel has not yet told anyone about his deal to tell the truth to Sydney.
That's right.
His whole plan would be scuppered. And in fact, it's a dreadful plan, isn't it?
It's such a half-baked plan. It's ridiculous.
What if Gabriel had said, yeah, I've not told anyone apart from Rebecca. So is he then going to go and kill Rebecca?
Yes.
And then he says to Rebecca, have you told anyone
My
about...
entire extended family.
Yeah, just a few, you
see Finlay with a machine gun walking down the street like
I'm not
a leather
dead.
jacket on.
Well, it's like in one of his movies, Boondock Saints, yeah. Anyway. So yeah, what happens then? If he simply says, yeah, I mentioned it to my girlfriend, which is you would assume that he would. You wouldn't assume that he wouldn't tell anyone.
I've placed an advert in the newspaper for tomorrow. You see him burning all the newspapers outside the shops.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's a garbage plan, this.
Yes.
Anyway, fortunately for him, he's told, no, I've not told anyone. Finlay then claims to have spoken with Sid himself, and he's agreed to allow Gabriel to score his next movie.
He has.
So they toast with a glass of champagne, another Columbo trope.
Yeah. And
Champagne's at the centre of an awful lot of Columbo killings, isn't it?
Murder of a Rock Star springs to mind immediately. You've also got the one with the chimp.
Murder by the Book,
Yeah,
with Miss Lysanka.
indeed.
And it's 2 bottles that he's quite capable of drinking himself.
Absolutely. Finlay doesn't do a great job of hiding the fact that he's not taking a drink.
No.
He just kind of waves the glass around in front of his face, and then as Gabriel goes out from the drugs, he smashes the glass he was holding and apologises in a sort of slurred voice and falls and cuts his hand in the glass, and he's out for the count.
Is it confirmed that this has killed him, or just that he's unconscious?
He's unconscious because they found the drug in his hand that had been in the champagne,
Yeah.
and it was a sleeping.
Yeah, but he can die from an overdose. I mean, obviously the amount it had to have taken to choke means that it was an overdose, and he can die in any...
That's possible, I suppose. But no, because the blood that came out of him when he fell off the building was fresh blood, so he must still have had blood pumping by that stage.
In that case, it's even more of a dreadful plan, because
He'd wake up.
if he'd killed him and the trapdoor did not work as he was hoping, he will still just be up there, and he's still got a chance to get rid of the body.
Yeah.
But if he's just drugged him and the trapdoor doesn't flip him over the side, and then he wakes up an hour later...
Yeah. I suppose though, what's he going to say? I passed out, I woke up here, I don't know what happened. I was with Finlay.
No, I was choking to death. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to tell everyone what happened and expose you, and then I'll be having my blood taken, tested to see if you've administered a...
But then Finlay takes his pile of blazing newspapers and thrusts it in his chest.
It's a dreadful... One of the worst plans in Columbo ever.
It's horrible. The fact that it almost works as well.
It's not that, I mean, it's... If we had to sit down and go, right, let's put together an outline of a Columbo plot, I'm sure within half an hour we could come up with something better than this.
Yes. I don't think it would be easy to come up with something more ridiculous.
Because the thing, I mean, that's what happened. If you had came to me and says, right, here's the plan, I would immediately say, wait a second, Ian, what about this and what about that? That's, go away. Come back tomorrow. That's terrible.
I think I know what they've done though. What they've done is they've said, look, here's a Toot in Black, this is really popular, take this one, make it worse, and come back.
Well, they're successful with that anyway, if that was their objective.
It's a bold strategy. We'll see if it pays off.
After he's passed out, Finlay, he takes Gabriel's shoes and puts them on the unconscious body, and he takes his key ring and removes a key. We're not sure what key it's for at this time. And then he tidies up the broken glass.
He does. Very meticulously.
Gabriel is then brought up to the rooftop via the elevator. And he is placed on top of this hatch with baton in hand.
Yes, because, and this is important later, Finlay knows people will recognise that as his baton. Bear that in mind when we come to the final scene.
Is it ever established, I mean, is this meant to be a suicide?
Yeah.
So he hasn't even bothered to write a suicide note. That's the most obvious thing you do to try and cement the fact it's a suicide. You leave a suicide note.
Problem is he tried to play it out on his piano and it just took so long.
It's later that evening, and Finlay arrives by car at the studio, and he asks one of the guards for the time, and he then appears behind the stage curtain just prior to the show commencing. But he pretends to have forgotten his baton, and so goes to get it, as Sydney performs an introduction to the evening.
Yeah, he's got a spoken introduction to what they're going to hear.
The crowd seem to lap up Sid's comic genius.
I think they're fans already, aren't they? So they'll be sympathetically inclined.
In the basement, Finlay waits and then sets the elevator upward and presses the button for it to return. So he set it going to the top and called it back down.
Yeah, I think he must know what Sydney's going to say, because otherwise what was the point of timing this earlier and then knowing when to start it?
We know that there's live TV cameras, or certainly recording TV cameras,
yeah.
So they'll be working to a fairly tight schedule.
A bit like the funeral last week.
Exactly. And he then arrives just in time to conduct the score.
Which also scores this part of the episode.
Yes. In the mixing room, we see that there are issues with some sort of PC software.
Well, they're also picking up the noise from the lift, which is upsetting them.
And we cut to the stopwatch, which is on Finlay's stand. Yeah,
I'm not sure why, other than the fact that he wants to make sure that the time has passed. But does it really matter to him?
Well, he needs to make sure that the noise is increased at the right time when the the doors will be opening.
Right, because they'll be noisier.
Yes.
Okay.
So just making sure that he raises the volume.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Finlay, there's an element he has not planned.
2 late-comers to the show.
They are walking down the street and are almost killed.
They could have been killed if that body lands on either of them, dead.
Also, neither of them seems to have much in the way of peripheral vision.
No.
Because a body literally lands in front of them and the first they notice is when it's on the ground.
They then burst in to alert everyone, and the concert goers run out to the scene, and we see Rebecca sobbing over Gabriel's body.
Is that what you would do? Would you burst in and announce it to the whole room? Would you not try and subtly alert a security guard or somebody?
Yeah, I think I'd be more discreet about it.
You don't want to alarm people. It could be family members, and indeed there was a partner in the room.
We're on the street and it's now the crime scene, and we see a returning face.
I was going to say it's Sergeant DeGarmo from last week, but it's not really last week, is it?
About 3 years ago.
DeGarmo's interviewing the couple who saw the fall, and they are really annoying.
Why?
Well, for some reason they think it's appropriate to bicker with one another while they're being interviewed by the police and talk about things in a weirdly disconnected way.
Yeah. Columbo's introduction is, they're trying to be comical again, aren't they? It's DeGarmo turns around and doesn't see Columbo at first, and he's on the ground.
Yeah, investigating.
He gets one of the photographers to take a picture of the wrist cut.
Yes.
Before the body is removed. And the latecomers confirm that not only is their peripheral vision not up to much, but they heard nothing. There was no warning whatsoever.
Now,
just the wham.
I would have thought that a body would make a noise as it fell through there.
Yeah. There's some amount of drag there. So I feel it's a large body.
Absolutely. Anyway, they didn't see him fall. They just heard him land and saw him land and heard nothing in the way of screams. Columbo chases after to confirm that information.
Mm-hmm. Up on the rooftop, they find out from the guard about Gabriel's rooftop habit, and that he was due to perform that night. He also notes the toppled music stand and the drop below.
Yeah, and immediately solves the crime.
Yeah, he does seem to use a bit of Columbo magic here, doesn't he?
It's remarkable, and even DeGarmo looks a bit confused.
Yeah, Columbo asked DeGarmo that if he had to fall from that height, would he scream? And DeGarmo says, yeah, I would be. You'd hear me in Timbuktu or something like that.
I don't think it's a reasonable question to start with.
It's not. But from this, Columbo deduces that the falling body was either already dead or unconscious.
Yes.
Now, are we assuming suicide?
Well, I think this is Columbo trying to rule out accident. But there's nothing to say someone didn't have an accident, fall and hit their head on the top and then fall off.
Mm-hmm. And without wanting to be too morbid here, do suicide victims normally scream? I'm not sure they do, in all cases. If you fall as an accident, of course you will scream out, I'd imagine.
I would imagine that it depends entirely on the individual and the circumstances.
Okay, so in that case then, Columbo cannot presume that this was the body was already dead or alive or drugged.
No, and Columbo has always had issues with suicides.
Yeah.
We've mentioned this a few times during the run, both back at the start and recently. Before he leaves the rooftop, he examines the music that had been on the stand and sees it's by Finlay Crawford.
He then instructs a search of the alleyway and asks if there was anything under the body before recognising this score.
Yeah, and he's told it was him that searched under the body, so he should know better than anybody else.
Mm-hmm. And I think he finds out at this point who Finlay Crawford is.
Yeah, but I think the reason he's asking that is because he thinks something is missing. Probably a baton.
The bungalow. Columbo arrives and Finlay invites him in for a drink, but Columbo, being on duty, declines and says he prefers a cigar.
There's a really awkward exchange between them as well here, when Columbo asks if it's okay to smoke a cigar, and Finlay says yes, he's also a cigar smoker, so would you like a nice one? And Columbo says, no, I'm used to this kind. And that's like, oh, Columbo's been running for ages, this is great.
We have never seen Columbo refuse top quality cigars before.
Never.
He takes as many, he sometimes steals them.
He does, and when he's offered one, he wants 6.
Yeah. The writer of this episode, it appears, does not know any of the character traits. Or is only briefly. He read the first paragraph in Wikipedia, and that's about it. Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, he knows the catchphrase. Let's go from that.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's all very disappointing, isn't it?
It doesn't even know the catchphrase. There wasn't a one more thing in this episode.
No.
Easy stuff. You're writing a Columbo script, yeah. Okay, what do we have in here? What? Let's tick off the tropes.
The only reason he's wearing the same outfit is because it's the only clothes that Peter Falk shows up in.
Yeah. In any case, Finlay feigns grief before putting on some music and air conducting.
It's a painful scene.
It's dreadful. Again, this is worse than his on-stage conducting. It looks like he's conducting a different piece of music.
But not only that, this is moments after one of his closest friends has been found dead outside, and he's just flicking through different pieces of music and then getting Columbo to sing a song with him, and it's all very weird.
So Columbo is bemused, but they start singing My Darling Clementine. Cringy, cringy, cringy. Vomit-inducing. I
am willing to wager £1 English that nobody saw this and thought, that's brilliant, Columbo and singing with Billy Connolly, that's amazing.
It's as if this new writer is saying, you know what? This old man, that's old school. I'm going to start a new trend here, a new thing, a new trope. Oh, but that Clementine, that's his new tune, his new theme tune, unofficially.
That's it. Columbo has questions.
Where were you, sir, when the deceased fell off the roof?
I was on stage, conducting a concert.
When was the last time that you saw Mr. McHenry alive, sir?
That would be last evening, in here, in the bungalow.
And what sort of mood was he in?
Since I had just informed him he would be conducting the theme from The Killer at tonight's program. Ecstatic?
Ecstatic day before. So he wasn't here when you arrived today?
I arrived at the studio a few minutes before performance. I didn't see Gabriel. I just assumed, as it was his normal practice, he'd be on the roof, conducting along with me, and would appear when he was due on stage.
So, the first time that you saw him today, he was on the ground. I can imagine how you felt, sir.
I was devastated.
And what did you do right after that?
Some members of the audience had come outside to gawp. I told them to go back indoors. I announced that the performance for this evening was cancelled and assured those present that the tickets would be good for next Saturday, when an additional piece would be added to the programme, a piece that I would compose myself as a tribute to Gabriel.
Oh, very nice gesture, sir. Tell me, did Mr. Gabriel, when he was conducting, did he always use a baton?
Of course. We all use batons.
The way that those lines of Crawford's were delivered sounded like Billy Connolly trying to do an impression of Patrick McGowan.
Yeah.
And I would not be at all surprised to learn that McGowan had redone that piece of dialogue.
As we're talking about Billy Connolly, he was a chap who played Finlay Crawford, born in 1942, less than a mile from where we are sitting now.
That's right. Anderson.
To many, I suppose, Americans, he is known as a stand-up comedian and part-time actor, but he started off as a folk musician.
Well, he started off as a sort of shipbuilder, didn't he?
Well, yes, I'm talking about his entertainment career.
Yes.
He was, he worked in the Clyde building ships.
Yeah, he had a band.
Yes, he was in the Humble Bums with Gerry Rafferty. Rafferty is most famous for Baker Street and Stuck in the Middle with You.
He's from Paisley.
Yes, he has died just a few years ago himself.
He did.
Connolly, as an actor, has been in The Hobbit, some 5 army thing.
He plays in the final edition of The Hobbit. He played the cousin of the King of Dwarves.
Brave, X-Files, The Boondock Saints, Mrs. Brown. I think he was quite highly regarded for that.
That was a good performance, I believe.
He had his own TV show in the States called Billy, and he was in Head of the Class.
See, the thing that I, as a young person, was first really introduced to him in a big way was his world tour of Australia. He's done a lot of travel shows. So that's another big thing that he's spent a lot of time on.
Oh, well, I'm showing my age then, because for me, I was first introduced to him in Supergran.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was also in The Big Man. That's a decent movie with Liam Neeson.
Right.
Set during the miners' strikes, and Neeson becomes a boxer to support the family, and I think Connolly is his trainer.
Alright, okay.
He was also on the Kenny Everett show on numerous occasions. He has been married to Pamela Stephenson for many decades. She was actually, and we didn't mention her, but she was a soap actor in It's All in the Game. A cameo appearance.
That's interesting.
Pamela Stephenson was in Not the 9 O'Clock News over here.
Most famously.
But non-British audience may know her best. She played the blonde in Superman 3. She's
also still prolific as a psychologist.
She's a sex therapist.
She writes in The Guardian regularly.
Billy Connolly was unfortunately diagnosed with cancer and early Parkinson's disease just a few years ago, so he's not in the greatest of health these days.
I believe his cancer may well be in remission.
Let's hope so. Now, on IMDb, there was some nonsense trivia about Billy Connolly with regards to this episode. Apparently, there was a bit of a fallout with McGowan when Connolly was found to be drunk on set. Now, for anyone who knows anything about Billy Connolly, he was an alcoholic, but has been entirely sober since 1985.
That would include this time?
That would certainly include this time. It's well known he hasn't touched a drop. Coincidentally, 1985 is probably the last time he was funny.
It's a bit harsh.
Yeah, I don't like his stuff these days. I think, from where he came from, his style was genuine, it was real. And I think, like a lot of comedians, it's hard to be as gritty. It's hard to be as cutting edge when you're a millionaire living in LA and that type of stuff. I think he's a bit of a parody of himself now.
He doesn't perform quite as much anymore.
He doesn't know, and he's obviously developed into a lot more acting and sort of documentaries and what have you. But yeah, I think in his prime, in his 70s, early 80s, no one could touch him. Certainly from these shores.
Yeah, he didn't like that
What?
when people tried to touch him.
No, he hated it.
Yeah, famously.
Hated the press.
Yeah.
In this country, in Scotland as well, he had many a punch up with the tabloids. Infamous.
To be honest, I have only good thoughts about Billy Connolly. I'm not too harsh a critic of things that maybe aren't prime Connolly, because he's done a lot of good stuff and he's seems a decent sort.
We head back to the street.
Just outside the bungalow, actually, where the cars are parked. And Columbo decides it's okay to assist Finlay in a spot of mild drunk driving.
This next few minutes is possibly the worst few minutes of Columbo ever. And I'm talking worse than Commodore. I'm talking worse than tubas and Malibus and daggers. This is repulsive. This whole thing is dreadfully written. It's horrible.
I would agree up to this point, but I think there's a worse scene to follow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. At this point, it's the worst in Columbo history, and it gets worse in this episode.
Yes. I don't argue with that at all. I think that's perfectly reasonable.
So, yeah, both Falk and Connolly it's just a horrible... what this episode misses as well, the dynamic, the relationship between Killer and Columbo just isn't there. There's not...
There's a problem with Crawford, the character, because we don't know anything about him. Mm-hmm. We don't know what he thinks about anything. We don't know, does he accept that he's a fading talent? Does he not accept that? Does he care about McHenry to start with? Is he upset about him being dead, despite having had to kill him? We don't know anything about his motivations. We don't know anything about his temperament. We literally know next to nothing about this guy, and it makes it really difficult to engage with him.
It's just another example of poor writing.
I agree.
So what happens here is that they leave the bungalow, and Finlay has had several drinks. Columbo, rather than saying, "Don't drive, I'm a cop," or saying, "Do you know what? I'll drive you home in your car," he comes up with a solution.
Oh, that's awful.
What is it?
He's going to drive his car slowly to Crawford's house, and Crawford can follow along slowly in his car. And if they get stopped, Columbo will sort it out.
Highly illegal, highly immoral, unethical. But anyway, what is the point?
There's no point. Well, the point is he wants Crawford's address. But you could just ask him.
You can ask him, and if he wanted just to communicate with him and, get information from him, as I suggested, he could have driven him home. He could have used that as an excuse. You're not driving, you're drunk, I'll drive you. You
can understand sometimes he does things like this to kind of put the killer in a particular frame of mind, to be thinking about one thing and then he turns it around with something else. But he doesn't do anything like that here.
No.
He just winds him up by being really slow and annoying him and then asking him questions.
So as they drive along the highway or the freeway, whatever it is, he stops several times. He's driving around at one point a bicycle goes by them ringing their bell.
Yeah.
So he's driving about 10 miles per hour.
On the freeway. That's illegal in itself, I'd imagine.
You see Finlay in the Rolls Royce behind him getting exasperated. It's a complete waste of 5 minutes of Columbo time.
Crawford starts off with the radio on playing a lullaby. He starts to nod off, so he switches it up. Mm-hmm. A wee bit later to something livelier. Do we even need to go through all the pieces? Columbo gets out and asks him about a baton.
Yeah, well, eventually, Columbo pretends to run out of fuel.
Yeah.
And he phones up LAPD to get the Garmo to bring fuel to his car and then drive his car to Finley's house.
Yes, and he does not only do that, he gets there before Columbo, who's now driving Finley's car and doesn't need to go slow.
Yeah.
It's all very strange.
It's strange you're being kind. It's terrible.
It doesn't progress the episode either. The plot doesn't move forward.
No.
Columbo fiddles about with Gabriel's keys. I wonder, is he looking... with Finley's keys. I wonder, is he looking for Gabriel's house key? But he doesn't know it's missing at this point.
No, and also, it's not like this house key has been used already in the murder plot.
No.
So Columbo's now got some magic that he knows that it's going to become useful down the line.
Oh, it's crazy. We don't even go into Crawford's home.
No. But another thing as well, in the car, he talks about the impact of this death. Very inappropriate. If that's his friend and prodigy, yeah. he's going to be upset, and he's talking about the smack, the sound. Terrible way to treat people.
And it doesn't achieve anything.
Yeah, because he mentions in the scream, because I think he's getting him to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we arrive at Finley's house, doesn't go in. DeGarmo is waiting and reveals that there was half a tank of gas left, and Columbo tells him not to tell anyone. And I think that's meant to be quite endearing and humorous, and look at old sly Columbo.
Oh, I tricked him.
Didn't trick him at all.
No.
In the past, we've seen Columbo been sly, been devious, and you think, wow, yeah, you've got him there. Look what you've revealed, look what you've found out, discovered.
This is like sort of a shell of Columbo doing nothing and then everyone patting him on the back and telling him he was devious.
You summed it up to me when I asked you a few days ago after you'd watched it what you thought of it, and you said it was sad.
Yeah.
I think that's it. It's a sad, pathetic carcass of a... I mean, it's on its death, it's its death throes here, isn't it? It could have ended very easily, and it should have ended with ashes to ashes.
Which would have been a fine finish.
Anyhow, we are where we are.
Absolutely.
LAPD, a different LAPD again.
Yeah, they're never in the same place twice. This one looks like a school classroom.
I suppose if it was an episode every week, you'd build a set, and you'd use the same set. But this is 3 or 4 years later, and they don't know when there's going to be another one, so they have to create a new set or use a set.
I don't think they care that much. They say, well, we just have a room.
Mm-hmm.
There's a room there, that's LAPD.
DeGarmo and Columbo go through Gabriel's possessions, and Columbo keeps the receipt for his tuxedo and his driver's license. And DeGarmo confirms that there was no obvious house key.
They also take a look at the love notes that he had put on paper for Rebecca.
Mm-hmm. And Columbo admits that there is no indication of, drugs or murder, but not yet.
Yeah, just because the evidence doesn't say there's drugs or murder, Columbo's going to find a way to make it that. What they should have done at the end here would just have one where there's not a murder, but Columbo is that paranoid that he convinces himself and he builds a whole case.
Yeah, you can see him starting to plant the evidence.
Yeah.
So we go to Gabriel's house.
Yep.
Columbo has an annoying police locksmith pick the lock to gain entry.
He does.
Did you like him, the locksmith?
No.
And he then ponders a number of photographs on the wall, and he's paying attention to footwear.
Yeah, but why?
Again,
There's a photo where you can't even tell that he's wearing them.
Yeah.
He goes through to the bedroom and opens the blind.
Yep. He gets a surprise, but not as much as a surprise as Rebecca.
Yeah, who wakes to find an old man in her bedroom.
Yeah. She was very relaxed considering, although I think she said that she'd taken a pill.
She'd taken sedatives.
That can be the only reason that she has not stabbed him.
Also maybe didn't have a weapon in bed with her.
That as well.
He starts a new thing, which he annoyingly does throughout this episode, and asks to borrow a photograph. Every scene he goes in now, he wants to borrow something.
Mm-hmm. But it's not even that. It's you're investigating the suspicious death of her boyfriend. It's like, you know what, ma'am? I'll need to take these photographs. Don't worry, give you a receipt, you'll get them back.
That's it.
It's not like we're not doing favours for each other here. This is evidence in a serious crime.
Is this meant to show him being sort of considerate and sympathetic or something? I don't know.
Well, he apologises and he leaves with this photograph.
Yeah, and in his car, he pulls out a giant magnifying glass type thing without a handle.
Yeah, where's he getting this from? It's like Sherlock Holmes has got one, so I better have one.
He examines the shoes in the photograph.
And he seems delighted with his discovery.
An epiphany or a eureka moment.
Rebecca was played by Hilary Danner. Now, does that surname sound familiar to you?
Does.
Yeah.
Etude in Black.
Now, I'm not sure if this is a coincidence, but I'd have to think not. But again, they're being so bold here. We are producing this piece of crap, but yet we're still going to remind our audience of how it should be done.
Yeah.
So Hilary Danner is the niece of Blythe Danner, who was John Cassavetes' wife.
Yeah, the killer's wife in Etude in Black.
So of course that makes her the cousin of Gwyneth Paltrow, who is the daughter of Blythe Danner.
Who was also in Etude in Black.
She was, although she could not be seen.
I think we've covered this point.
Yeah, in her mummy's tummy.
Sounds like a phrase you've been using.
Mm-hmm. Hilary Danner has also been in Charmed, Michael Hayes, University Hospital. Again, not much of a career, to be honest.
Didn't mind Charmed, it was alright.
Yeah, but she's in one episode.
Oh, well, don't remember her then.
I don't think she's done anything for the last 10, 11 years. Certainly on TV or film. She might be on stage or retired. And there was also a Harry Danner in this episode. I think might be the brother.
Okay.
He played someone called Fitch. I'm not sure who Fitch was. To be honest, can't be bothered going back and watching this again. This episode, mentioned before, there's certain ones that I've watched about once or twice.
May have been a member of the orchestra.
Could have been. But you've given him a name, so how would they know he was called Fitch?
I don't know.
Anyway, he's in that. He's one of the Danner clan.
Maybe another policeman.
Could be, yeah.
There was a policeman who was asked for something at some point.
Yeah, maybe it was him.
I don't remember.
I doubt I'll ever watch this episode again.
Who knows?
I do. I
We
won't.
do version 2 of the Columbo podcast. We do them all again.
In reverse order.
Yeah.
And watch it getting better. Where do we head off to next, Ian?
The tuxedo shop.
We do. Columbo speaks with Antonio and finds out that Gabrielle hired a tuxedo, but that the shoe sizes were a guess. So explain this, please.
Oh, we get a whole spiel about the first time that Gabriel ever came into the shop, how he could only afford half of his outfit, but he charmed the owner so much he gave him the whole thing, and then later, when he came back, he would ask for discounts for not taking the shoes, because he had shoes that he would wear by himself, so he always wore his own shoes.
But why was there a guess involved here?
Because on the measurements card, there was a figure for every measurement except for shoe size, because he didn't take the shoes. And a different person working there was unaware of his habit of not taking shoes and just guessed what size he would be and chucked a pair in.
This is one of the biggest pieces of nonsense as well in Columbo history. So are you telling me you go to be fitted for or hire a tux, and you are away in your own little world for a few moments, and the salesperson or the owner shouts across to you, "What size of shoes, sir?" You don't hear him. So rather than walking back over and saying, "Sorry, sir, what size of shoes do you want?" you go, "Well, I asked him once. He didn't hear me. He's getting what I think." And you throw in a pair without. That is utter garbage.
Well, my assumption is he didn't hear him and then he left. So the guy didn't know what to do because the customer had left.
Yeah, but this is a very... You
But
hire a
yeah,
tux.
he wouldn't leave without the tux.
No.
Or unless he ordered it before he was picking it up.
Yeah, but still, if you ask a question,
Yeah.
and you don't get a response because he's conducting and he's not listening, you ask him again. You don't leave it at that.
No.
You're an average person. This guy wears trainers or
This
sneakers.
is his
but
job as well.
Yeah.
This guy.
Go exactly as you think, oh, wait a second, this guy's... Look at him conducting there. He must be a conductor. This must be for one of his concerts. I better make sure he's got the right shoes.
Not only is it his job, it's the guy in the tuck shop's job to get it right.
Yes. This is probably an overlooked piece of nonsense. Right, it enrages me.
We're not overlooking it, we're...
No, making a point of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Columbo borrows a pair of shoes, this borrowing thing again, and the measurement card.
Yep. I don't know why he has to have the shoes.
He wants to check what size they were.
Yeah, you ask.
You could. And why are the shoes at the tuck shop anyway?
He must have taken them from the...
They were on the body. So how did they end up back with the tux people?
Did Columbo bring him? Or
did Columbo come in with them and then keep them?
who knows?
Then why is he borrowing them if he's already got them?
Yeah, who knows? It's a complete... I'm not going to expend any more energy in this episode than I have to. So, studio. Finlay is conducting over a movie.
Again.
Columbo arrives and it just goes from bad to truly awful.
The ruining a take trope.
Yep, that's in there, but not in a nice way. Not in a... if this was one of the few comedic reliefs during the episode, it's nice, but what happens here?
Crawford introduces him to the orchestra and makes the gormless group of idiots, as I can only assume they are from their behaviour in this scene, play... His name is Columbo. He sounds Italian. Let's play a stereotypically racist piece of music for him.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this piece of music itself is racist, but Finlay's behaviour's a bit ridiculous.
Yep.
Stereotypical piece of nonsense. They play Amore for Columbo, who loves it
Yeah.
far more than any normal person would, and sings along. And again, they talk about the grand prize, and there's an excruciating segment that follows.
There is. Tell me about it.
Crawford takes control of the keyboard, and he tries to explain to Columbo that you don't remember the music unless it was bad, but it has an effect on you. So here's some music from the film.
First, before we get any further, that is nonsense. That's absolute garbage what you just said there.
Well, you mentioned John Williams before.
Yeah, everyone knows all... that's one of the things that you do remember.
James Horner's stuff from Titanic and Braveheart, everyone knows all that.
The score is just... some of the most famous movies have some of the most famous scores. Yep. Star Wars, Rocky, Back to the Future, Jaws.
Yeah, even the Lord of the Rings stuff, Howard Shore did some remarkable stuff for those films as well.
Yeah. The Third Man. It's he's making stuff up here.
Yeah.
Right, so that's bad enough. What happens next?
Can we just pretend it didn't happen next?
I'd like to, but let's do it.
I've got a one-liner here. Crawford plays tunes and Columbo tries to guess the music, but it was far worse than you can even possibly imagine.
How could you write this for Columbo? So they play Jaws, one of the, arguably the most famous.
Well, they don't play Jaws first, do they? He plays something else first. It is...
Psycho.
Yes.
And he can't get that either. It's the one about the maniac,
he's got his eye shut. I can see a woman in the shower. Pervert.
Yes, I bet you can. Yeah. And then stab and it's the mental one. Oh, what?
He's acting as though the music's giving him a mental replay of the scene.
Uh-huh.
From Psycho.
Yeah. And then we have what do the crowd shout?
Oh, the whole orchestra shout the name of the movie. Oh, silly Columbo.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Then we go into Jaws. So he plays Jaws with the most famous score probably of all time.
Oh, it's the one with the fish.
The fish? The fish? What are you talking about?
And he says it in a funny voice. It's weird.
And he can't get that either and they have to shout out, Jaws!
And they're all speaking in their gormless voices again. It's like there's no intelligent behaviour in the room.
Columbo's a moron here.
I don't know what he's doing. Is he just humouring Crawford, or is he genuinely not remembering these tunes?
Who knows? Again, the writer here is a disgrace.
And Crawford has one more.
What was the other one?
It's the one that he's trying to let Columbo hear the sound of the lift.
Ah, yeah.
So he plays the one from the night before.
Yeah.
I assume he deliberately wants Columbo to hear the sound of the lift.
Yeah.
So that he knows the crime was committed while Crawford was conducting. But strangely, when Columbo works out it was the lift, he just decides it was Crawford anyway.
Yeah.
He doesn't even consider that, oh yeah, he was on stage. Nah, that was him, he did it. That's the end.
Columbo then discusses Gabriel's footwear choice and informs Finlay that he always wore sneakers. Now, you'd have thought someone who works with this guy would know this anyway. Why would you not know this?
It's one of those sort of idiosyncrasies that people would be aware of. Like if you wore red trousers to work, like an idiot or something.
And this fact is causing a problem for Columbo.
How extraordinary.
Yeah, being in dark colors, they're very easy to miss. Unless you're really looking.
So I see. I never did notice them. What an eccentric lad he was.
See, but last night, sir, he was wearing these. And I've been racking my brains trying to figure out why did he change his habit.
Stop doing it.
Well, stop what, sir?
Last night was to be the most extraordinary night of his entire life. He was to conduct an orchestra before a live audience. Do you imagine he would turn up improperly dressed on such a night?
Yes, that might explain it. But it doesn't explain this, sir. You see this, sir? No shoe size at the tuxedo rental place.
So?
So what, sir?
He was changing his life. He was changing his habits. So we told them we would have dress shoes for a change, and they gave them to him. I bet he was in a rush.
So they said, sir.
Always on the go, Gabriel. Although, why they overlooked entering his shoe size is quite beyond me. Ask them.
I'll do that, sir. I'm sorry to intrude upon your time.
We can only assume that the shoes are the wrong size as well.
Yeah. As he leaves, Columbo informs Finlay that Gabriel wore a size 9 in sneakers. Finlay is uninterested.
Couldn't care less.
Nope. Quite rightly.
Yeah.
Rooftop.
Up on the rooftop.
DeGarmo and the guard have had no luck in finding anything useful, and Columbo only now appears to notice this hatch.
Oh, who even can keep up with this nonsense?
They open it up and the guard tells them that it's no longer in use, but is an elevator that used to bring up a camera or something.
Yeah, it was for a movie. It was put in for one film.
Yep, so they phone up the director, Sid Ritter, to find out more about it, and without explanation, he agrees to tell Columbo a story about the iron door that evening. He just says, yeah, I'm busy just now, but come round later, I've got some stories I could tell you about that hatch. Whoa.
Yeah, the story's not that interesting.
No. We next see Finlay enter Gabriel's home at night, using the key that he had taken from the keyring. What does he discover there?
Music, eventually.
What type of music, and why is he interested in it?
It's sheet music that he has written, or at least he has his name on. And he finds a copy of his Oscar-winning score with Gabriel's name written on it, therefore proving that Gabriel wrote it. Gabriel, who's now dead.
Yeah. I'm going to see how, what do you call it, J.K. Rowling likes that. I'm going to just grab a copy of Harry Potter, scribble out her name and write my name on it and go, look, that was
I'll
me.
have my 20 million pounds,
I want my
please.
cut, please. I don't think that works. That's proof of nothing. And why would you keep 2 copies? It's basically just so that we can...
You have to show, look, here's the one that he wrote, and here's the one that I wrote.
You wouldn't keep a double copy.
Well, it's to show the changes in the music. So you've got the original score that Finlay wrote, and then you've got the edited version that's completely different that Gabriel did.
Yeah, but it's got his name on it and it has scored out. It's not. It's just a cack-handed, heavy-handed way of doing that. You know, there's no version control there. It's just that's mine now.
Anyway, he steals it.
He does.
So that solves the mystery. Or at least ends the mystery.
We're back over at the studio, and Columbo has been given a brief history of the place by Sidney, and he describes the elevator folly. It was put in for one by some whiz kid who was a toast or who was a flavour of the month, installed a elevator for our movie. The movie flopped, and he's now out of the business and they've been left with this elevator.
Makes you wonder if it's that guy from
Yes,
Murder, Smoking
Shadow.
Shadow.
Yeah.
He installed it, and then he had his big thing with the whole murder thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be.
There's no cobwebs in the lift buttons, so Columbo says to himself, these have been used, and this crate has been moved recently, and here's a baton. But when he tries the lift, it does not work.
Nope.
So he goes to see Rebecca.
Before we move on to that scene, Sidney Ritter was played by Charles... Now, how would you pronounce that, Ian? C-I-O-F-F-I.
Chaffee.
Chaffee. Okay. Charles Chaffee. Born in 1935, he has been in Shaft, Clute, The X-Files, Murder, She Wrote, The Equalizer, Kojak, and Orion's Hope. TV actor.
Yeah.
Prolific, but not high profile.
There you go.
Rebecca's house.
Well, it's not Rebecca's house, is it? It's Gabriel's house. She's just there.
No, is it? I'm not sure if it was. Because I think it might be her own house. Doesn't
Oh,
really
yes, no, this might be her home now. Yes,
Yeah.
you're right. Okay. Columbo's there, and he has the baton.
She tells him that she gave it to Gabriel and the reason why, and that he went to rehearse at the bungalow that evening.
Yeah, this is why I thought it was Gabriel's home, because they go to look for the music, and it's missing.
Yeah.
Because that's the only place that the key was stolen for. So it must be Gabriel's place. Why she's there then?
Why she's
I
still
don't know.
there, yeah.
Maybe she's just obsessing about
Unless, of course, does she live with him?
I don't think so, because when he died, she's told Columbo that she was just there because she wanted to be close to him that night.
Yeah.
Unless she meant she was staying in her own house to be close to him rather than going to stay with someone.
Oh, who knows?
Oh, it's a riddle inside a mystery, inside an enigma.
It's a piece of nonsense, what it is. She then outlines the relationship between Gabriel and Finlay and informs Columbo that it was in fact Gabriel who wrote just about every note of the recent scores.
Apparently so. And Columbo, no doubt, finds this compelling.
Yeah, so this is at this point they go to look for this work. But of course,
It's missing.
it's gone.
Oh, that might be a motive. There was no need to steal this, for a start. It made no sense. And he's essentially handed himself over.
This episode does not make any sense at all, and it only gets less sensical.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be one of the least intelligent killers that we've come across.
We head over to the coroners, and DeGarmo and Columbo are debating the likelihood of Gabriel being conscious on impact.
We're coming up to another irritating moment in this episode.
Go for it.
The coroner advises that there was nothing unusual. Small amount of alcohol from some time previous, which shows that the body was still alive, obviously, because it's processed alcohol. Columbo demands to examine the body, and it proves that he's a better coroner than the coroner because he finds something.
So there's two things there. Firstly, yes, it does prove that the coroner is dreadful because Columbo did find something. I mean, how can you miss a cut on someone? That's what you do. You inspect the body.
Yeah.
That should have been noted. Any grazes are...
Well, he says it was assumed that was an impact injury.
It should still have been noted there.
But Columbo makes the point that it was dried blood at the time of the body being found, so he wants it tested. So they test the dried blood. Or they're going to test the dried blood.
Yeah. But even Columbo's attitude I don't like. You know, he just takes over.
Yeah.
No, you missed something. I'm looking
It's like,
at this.
how dare you not find proof that this man was murdered? Columbo sends DeGarmo to check in on the concert that evening, which I think is going to have the tribute piece to Mr. McHenry.
Correct. We're back to the basement, and DeGarmo tells Columbo that no prints have been found. Columbo then swaps out a couple of fuses and is able to get the elevator to work.
Only Columbo could have found that, obviously. No one else is bright enough.
Back up in the main rehearsal area.
There's a really odd moment on the screen.
Yeah, what is it?
It looks like a man appearing on a beach pulling himself out of a tiny little hole. This seems to be the end of a longer movie, obviously, so he's perhaps had some adventure previously.
Sid's watching it, and when it finishes, he approaches Finlay, says, "This is garbage, get it fixed by the morning."
Amusingly, the subtitles while the music was playing said, "Cliched melodramatic music."
Yep.
The director wants romance, not thick pea soup.
Columbo appears from the shadows as Finlay takes a sneaky wee drink, and he asks him to help him in solving what is now a homicide.
There's a musical element. So Finlay, as ever, sends the orchestra on a break. And this reminds me of the finish to Etude when the few people just sat down here in this auditorium.
So Columbo asks the sound mixer to remain and play the score from the other night. He does, and Columbo then asks him to lower the volume. And what do we hear?
Well, DeGarmo's playing with the lift, so you hear that, and then you hear the same sound on the track.
Finlay pretends to have no idea what is making the noise, and Columbo explains that it was the elevator that made a mess of the original recording.
So they go and investigate, and
Down to the basement.
the lift's working, so they take it up to the roof.
And there's some nonsense here about walruses. Do you like walruses at the zoo? And Finlay says I can take them or leave them.
No idea. Pass. Columbo explains... Sorry, when they get to the roof and there's a bunch of folk there, there's the couple that saw the body land, there's Rebecca with her piano. It's like some kind of rooftop concert.
Yeah, like the Beatles.
Yeah, that was what I thought. And Columbo explains what happened. The baton proved that the lift came up and opened because it doesn't fall down the slit on its own. The shoe sizes don't match.
Yeah, but Columbo also explains how Gabriel was thrown over the side, but Finlay claims that he would have heard it and taken evasive... He would have heard the elevator coming up.
Yes.
And taken evasive action.
Yes.
This helps Columbo's case, I think.
Essentially, Columbo points out that a man who was unconscious wouldn't know that someone had put the wrong size of shoes in his feet.
Yep.
Obviously has no evidence of that, but he's asserting it anyway.
And he also wants to know why he did not scream. We've discussed that already.
They talked to the woman again, evidence they already had. So they've dragged her out here just for the show, and she says that she screamed, but Gabriel did not.
Yeah, he then shows Finlay the picture of the cut wrist and informs Finlay that they found traces of a sedative.
Well, before that they ask him if he's heard of this sedative, and he says yes, he took it at some point.
Again, they've just shoehorned this in at the last moment here. Yeah. So he's got this to hand.
Absolutely. They talk about the keys being stolen and the missing the killer.
Yeah, I mean, Columbo, what he does now is sort of builds up the evidence against Finlay.
Such as it is.
Are you familiar with secobarbital, sir?
Oh, yes, I've used it. After my wife's death, it helped me to sleep.
Well, it metabolizes very quickly. We didn't find a trace of it in Gabriel's blood. But this blood, sir, it wasn't inside the body. It was outside. It was over here, sir, on his hand. He must have cut himself long before he fell off the roof, because when I saw the blood, it was bone dry. Plus, hold the phone, sir. It was full of secobarbital. So Gabriel didn't scream because he was drugged. Sergeant, what am I looking for here?
Unconscious, sir.
Unconscious. That's the word I was looking for. And if you're unconscious, sir, you can't complain if someone puts shoes on your feet that are 2 sizes too big and you wouldn't be aware if someone stole your house key. Tell me, sir, who had a motive to steal Gabriel's original score of The Killer, which was the basis for someone winning Hollywood's highest award? Well, we know who won the award. The same person that stole Gabe's house key. Actually, the same person that drugged him. Because the motive to steal Gabriel's score is the same as the motive to push the button, make it go up, and throw the kid off the roof, which wouldn't have worked unless he were drugged. Because, as you said, sir, the boy would have heard the elevator.
Where do we even start with that?
To be honest, that's the high point of this scene. It just gets worse.
What I'd like to mention is that we heard at the beginning of that clip Finlay mentioning taking the sedatives because of his after his wife died. That's thrown in there with no explanation at all.
Yeah.
Now, here's an easy one. You could build a backstory around the fact that after his wife had died, Finlay Crawford was no longer able to create. There was some sort of mind block, some creative constriction. And that could have been a good reason for the situation that he's now in. But they just threw in the fact, oh yeah, I take sleeping tablets because my wife died. No explanation.
Yeah, and not only that, they also talk about his lack of creativity as some kind of character flaw. I mean, Gabriel talks to him as if he's a terrible person because he's not quite as talented as he used to be.
Yeah. Okay, what else do we have here then? So
we've got Rebecca now, and I don't get this bit at all, so you can explain it because I don't understand what's going on.
I cannot explain it. So Rebecca plays the notes that were on the baton and on the printout, that his response to the baton. And all it signifies, it's G-A-B-E for Gabe, and then he responds with B-E-C-C-A for Becca. Yep.
Aha, gotcha.
No idea how...
Gotcha.
No,
gotcha.
Yeah, you've got me. What?
The problem with this is, like we mentioned earlier, Finlay knew it was his baton. He put the baton in his hand. He intended for him to have a baton. So proving it's his baton doesn't do anything.
Where is the proof?
Will you give me proof, Lieutenant? Where is your proof, Lieutenant?
Sorry, are we missing something here?
I think we're either being very stupid or perhaps something was cut from the episode that made a difference here, but I don't understand why these notes referring to these people makes any difference.
Is there a gotcha here? Is there anything that proves that Crawford committed this was a murder?
I didn't see anything.
The shoes. He provided a perfectly plausible explanation.
Yeah, and if he's going to jump off a building, why does he care what shoes he's wearing? Maybe he didn't want his good sneakers to get covered in blood.
Yep, and the whole baton thing and the notes, utterly meaningless.
Well, maybe they prove that he was so in love he would never have killed himself, but that's another fundamental misunderstanding of why people kill themselves.
Yeah, good luck with that in front of a jury.
Yeah. Not only that, it's not highly inappropriate to take the grieving girlfriend and force her to participate in this charade.
At the death spot, or the suicide spot, if that's what it was.
Yeah.
Or the murder spot.
She's been sitting there looking at this hatch as it opened when the lift came up, having to picture her boyfriend rolling off it over the edge of the building. If that's what happened. It's so...
Again, I'm just get back to one of the points we made at the start. There's no way that door is going to flip a body. Because there'll be a wall here, yeah? A small wall.
People can't see what you're doing.
Yeah, I know, but they can imagine. There's a small wall. It's not a flat, it's not... If you roll a ball in that roof, it doesn't fall off the end. There's a...
Jerry's actually built a model out of Lego.
I have, like Doc Brown. So you've got a wall here.
I see, okay.
And when that comes up, the body's here, it falls against a wall.
Yeah.
You would have to flip it, but to flip a body would require incredible power.
Yeah.
And that won't be available on that little hatch.
I don't think so.
Yeah. This is just one of the worst criminals, one of the worst killers, one of the worst plots, the worst evidence, the worst gotcha.
And then it gets worse again at the end. Because once Finlay goes off in a police car to be incarcerated somewhere with a nice set of instruments.
Well, he just gives up. As soon as he hears Becca tap out these notes, he goes, yeah, that's me. I've been got.
Got me, yes.
Where's the prison? Can I get a prison with an orchestra?
It's a fair call.
Yeah.
After he's toddled off in the police car, Columbo takes the time to speak to the grieving Rebecca and insist on a piano lesson.
Why?
Because he wants to be able to play This Old Man for Mrs. Columbo. It's her favourite and she always whistles it while she's cleaning.
Now, where is he going to play this?
On the piano in his house.
Okay, so let's assume he does have a piano in his house, yeah? This old man is the type of little tune like chopsticks or whatever that you could pick up over the years. You could work it out yourself.
One finger you could play it.
Yeah. If he'd wanted to play that before, he could have learned, he could have taught himself.
Maybe he never gets a chance to use the piano when she's not around, so he wants to surprise her by being able to play it straight away. But how impressed is she really going to be if he comes in with one finger going, da, 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 da. Oh, it's that tune that I love.
I whistle when I'm... Yeah, see the stuff I whistle or hum when I'm doing things? It's not. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's just an earworm. I can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
And you're playing it for me again. That's the end.
That is the end, thankfully.
And there were, as I say, no real highlights in this episode to even look back on with a bit of pleasure.
No, there was nothing. Nothing I enjoyed about this at all.
Sad.
Very sad. Production information. 12th of March 2001, 85 minutes. Patrick McGowan.
They better not be inviting him back for the next one.
He's had his grubby wee paws and a lot of rubbish, hasn't he?
He is responsible for some of the worst Columbo, and also some of the best.
This is his fifth and final role as a director.
Okay.
And we spoke about him in detail last week.
We did.
And we'd spoken about him before.
So let's just move on.
Yeah. Jeffrey Cava. Writer. Along with, as we said, McGowan's got an uncredited role. I think it's credited now.
So how much blame do we attribute to Cava?
This might help you work it out. This is his only IMDb entry.
Oh dear.
It's the only thing he has ever done in movie or TV.
Sacre bleu.
Thankfully. This was his first chance. We're giving you a shot, Jeff. Let's see what you can do. Yeah, bye-bye, Jeff. Get out.
Take your soiled bed sheets with you.
Yeah. Jeffrey built an elevator shaft. I'm assuming that he didn't die in a horrible accident the following week, and that's why. That'd be sad.
A highly unlikely and badly planned accident.
Yeah. Trivia. There's no trivia for this one, really. Finlay Crawford was an amalgam of two names that Billy Connolly uses in his stand-up routine. See, Finlay and Crawford are two posh boy names when he's mocking the sort of upper classes, which he is now a member of with his baubles from royalty and his mansions that he lives in. But that's one of the things. Finlay Crawford.
Okay.
So that's where they got that from.
So he had some input.
Mm-hmm. Next week, we've got Columbo Likes the Nightlife. Oh,
that's not promising.
It's not Columbo the Nightlife.
You can imagine them pitching that. Look, here's what we're going to do.
Columbo taking E.
Do you remember that one scene when Columbo went to a nightclub? We're going to take that and make it a whole episode.
Oh, no. We'll get to that. Episode review.
Okay.
Motive.
To preserve his reputation, I guess.
Yeah, prevent career-ending exposure and humiliation.
Yeah.
Alibi.
He was conducting at the time of the death.
Clues. If I miss any, don't bother reminding me. It's not worth it. The lack of scream, the shoes, the dust on the buttons, Gabriel doing all the work for Finlay, the baton discovery, the fact that Gabriel was apparently very happy, the wrist cut and the drugs, and then the musical notes on the baton, and I don't know.
What are they a clue to?
Nothing. Clue to the lack of ability of a writer.
Or something critical being missing. We did get a nice bit of endorsement for drunk driving, though.
We did. Peter Falk is A-OK with him. And the gotcha?
There wasn't a gotcha.
There's no gotcha. Let us know. Listen, we might be very, very stupid. I think, we are very, very stupid. But if we've missed something really obvious here, if someone can explain this...
I think I might have figured it out.
Go for it.
I think when she plays those notes, it's a hypnotic trigger.
You've not watched the movie Strange Brew, have you?
I've not.
Rick Moranis and Doug McKenzie.
Okay.
Early 80s. They came... We've mentioned this before, I think. They came through the SCTV comedy troupe. Canadian comedy troupe.
Right.
But in that movie, the plot, the bad guy was using mind-controlled drugs placed in beer. And then was controlling... it was basically creating an army on ice. Ice skating army that they could control through a keyboard. It's better than this episode. It
sounds better than this episode.
It is better. It's a comedy. It's a ridiculous comedy from the early 80s. It's definitely worth a watch. Strange Brew.
Okay, I'll maybe look that one up.
It's nonsense, But it's meant to be in that
Right.
context. But here, what's going on?
I can't help you with that.
Yeah, that's us.
Okay. Well, in that case, we'll remind folk that rating, reviewing and subscribing on iTunes helps others find the Columbo podcast, which will be pleasurable for them. So please do that, and keep in touch with us at columbopodcast.com, on Twitter at Columbo Podcast, and facebook.com/Columbo Podcast. We're at all those places, and we love to hear from you. So we'll see you next week.
Cheerio.
Bye bye.
You have been listening to the Columbo Podcast from Heard Yet Media.